Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I'm thankful to have Emily Neale with me. Emily is a professional ballet dancer. She was most recently a soloist at Ballet West in 2020. Over a 5 year time period at Ballet West, she moved up from a trainee to being invited to join the group in 2016, to becoming a demi-soloist in 2018, and then a soloist in 2020. Uh, she graduated from the Ellison Ballet Academy in 2015, and she was also the cover star for Pointe Magazine Summer's Edition in 2019. Emily, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you.
Of course, thankful to have you. So, take us to the beginning. Where you grew up, your family situation, and what type of kid you were.
Okay. Well, I hail from New England. Um, I know you from my time in Acton, Massachusetts. I was born in New York City, the city that my parents met. I am a first generation child. My mom came from uh, Beijing, and my dad was born in Baghdad, and his family immigrated to the United States, to New York, when he was a child. So my brother and I are first generation Americans, and we grew up in the city for the first parts of our life and then moved to New Jersey. Um, Spent 7 years there. And then that's when we moved to Massachusetts when my mom, her work, it was transferred to Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's when I started my ballet journey. Like I didn't know anybody in Acton, and my mom, like there was like some family connection there, with someone that went to a family that went to college with her brother in China. So their daughter happened to be my age and in my grade. So she did ballet, and then that's how I got into it, just to kind of make friends at Acton School of Ballet. Then, yeah, did like the whole school thing, just navigating life as a regular kid in the suburbs. And I would go to summer programs for ballet, just to learn more about training and like a setting that is more serious than recreational. And that's how I would spend most of my summers for the majority of my childhood. And then one summer, uh, this woman, Patricia McBride, she was like this legend with the New York City Ballet. She was one of the muses of George Balanchine, who's a huge name in the choreographing world. And he started the New York City Ballet. Um, she basically said, if you want to do this seriously, if you want to actually pursue ballet, I think that you have a shot, but you're gonna have to go to like a serious pre-professional school. You're gonna have to transition into a more focused lifestyle, and I'll help you do that if that's something you want. And that was when I was 15, and I just completed my freshman year of high school with Acton Boxborough Regional High School. Shout out, blue
Yep,
and gold.
AB.
um, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't failing school by any means, but I definitely didn't have like any direct passion in any subject. I just felt like I was moving through emotions more than anything, and I looked forward to ballet more than I looked forward to um, classes. So I just kind of took that jump,
Yeah,
moved to New
wait,
York.
before you go to New York,
Yeah, for sure.
the you know multi-identity nature of your background, I'm curious how that's shaped you. Um,
Mhm.
and have you ever felt a part of fully any identity?
That's a great question. I think and I mean, I guess I'll just take the question how I took it, but at the time, I really did struggle with identity. I think that's something, when you grow up in a very, um, Caucasian environment, and especially when you have parents that are not American, like, or didn't grow up as an American, um, you know, I think that's something that a lot of kids, you have to kind of go through that mystery of just like, who am I? Like, who do I want to be? Like, what do I believe in? What do I care about? What is being put on me that I'm just kind of accepting? And what do I actually like? And I definitely struggled with that. The only thing I really felt I had an identity in was ballet, for the most part, because the only thing that really mattered was your dancing, and what you could produce in terms of like performance, and in class when you're trying to improve on things. Everything else, like school, like social situations, it definitely always felt like I was floating between groups of people, um, and
Because
just
you were
trying to
you
figure
were
it
a
out.
halfie, right? Is that
Yep.
the term? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it very, yeah, definitely felt like it. It's like you go hang out with, like, I did Chinese dance, and I loved that. I loved like the crew that I met there. And like that was awesome. But I was like, the half Asian one, or one of the half Asian ones there. And then when I'd go to school and most of my friends were, white, then I was the half Asian one there too. And it was just felt like there wasn't just like, not a mentioning of the idea of being half Asian. So that was very interesting to navigate as a kid.
Do you remember when you first started being aware of that identity?
Let's see. I mean, I think for sure. I think, well, my mom, her first language is Mandarin. So I think when I started to feel in the family, actually, just growing up, I didn't speak Mandarin, and I didn't really have like a deep interest in learning how to speak Mandarin, because it's a very difficult language if you're not just surrounded by it constantly. Um, and yeah, it was before socializing in a school setting that I think that identity sunk in, of like, oh, I am not necessarily comparable. I mean, I shouldn't be comparable ever, but it's like I'm not able to identify with anyone around me directly, especially in those moments when my mom would be speaking Mandarin with other members of her family, her side of the family, and I would just be sitting there like trying to guess what everyone's saying, and like I knew they were talking about me, and I was like, okay, like there's something different here that I'm experiencing, and I wish I could understand, but I don't.
Yeah. Talk to us about, ballet and, obviously our parents put us into a lot of different activities, but, it seems like from a young age, in your summers and things like that, you were taking it, not seriously, but you were really passionate about it.
Mhm.
Um, you know, young people tend to be all over the place. So I'm curious, what was your mindset in being so passionate about it? What did you love about ballet?
Yeah. I think I loved like the costumes. I loved the idea of just being a character that, you get to just be that person. Like you get to wear the beautiful costume, you get to be with the music, you get to share the storyline. I was a big geek for ballet videos, and I think that's something that brought the passion, just because I would be watching the same like DVDs over and over again, because I only had like three or so. Um, and yeah, just like watching these different stories, um, from it was American Ballet Theater, I believe, the the videos. But yeah, I don't know. I just watched them, thought it was really, really just something that I wanted to do. I could like just, I don't know, it was a very natural drawing to the art form. I loved music. I just like, you know, in my room, I would just dance around. So it's the idea of dancing on a stage with all this elaborate setting around you and music. And it just seems so dreamlike. It
Yeah.
just, it was always an interest.
Yeah. So at 15, you're considering the move to New York. Talk to us about that process. You know, especially I guess I'm interested in your parents being okay with that because you know, I think so many of us are brought up in a traditional high school, college, you know, that's the path.
Mhm.
To move to New York City at 15's a very different path.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, at the time, it didn't. Yeah, I guess you were right about that. My parents were very, I guess, like super supportive, like in the sense where they knew that um, I knew I would like to make it sound nicer than it is, but in the end, they know, and they still know that I'm going to do what I want to do, and that's something that I think that they understood, especially my mother at a young age. Where she knew that if I had this like deep wanting to do something, um, that you know she would support it as long as I was the one that was pulling her almost to like to convince her that it's something worth um, you know quote unquote investing in. And so you know my dad, he wasn't so supportive at the time. He was you know he wanted me to stay in school and like a regular schooling setting socially and you know take the college route or prepare for that route. But I think my mom, she's always been interested in the arts, and I mean, same with my dad. But she definitely knew that I really wanted it, and so I think as long as I showed signs of willingness and passion and dedication and you know seriousness, and not just like trying to leave something aimlessly, I think that's what ultimately led to their support, even though it was probably a really hard decision for them, both morally and financially.
Were you alone in New York City?
I was alone, and
Wow. Wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
I wasn't really alone though because I had, you know, I had friends that were also moving there to go dance and train. So it was essentially like a little bubble. Like I left everything that I knew alone, but then once I entered the bubble, I didn't feel like I was alone.
How did you you know, I guess all your AB friends are, I mean they're working hard but they're sort of, less in that sense less like ambitious in terms of working, as hard as, I assume a pre-professional ballet program, you were entering an intense program while they're probably just hanging out at the park, and things like, I mean, how was that process of telling them that you were going after this dream?
Well, most of my AV friends at the time were like dancers, like at acting school ballet.
Yeah.
Um, you know, although it wasn't to as serious of a degree, um, they definitely loved ballet. And so I think the friends that I had at AB at the time were so supportive, and I'm still friends with many of them today. Um, just very supportive. I don't think anyone realized how intense the training would be, including myself, because you know we had all gone to summer programs, different summer programs, so we knew what the environment was like. But yeah, I guess at the time it just didn't seem as serious. It was more just the idea of, oh, I love this. Um, I know how to work at it. it's something that I understand more than studying. So let's just do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk
Yeah.
to it was I might say this wrong, but Gelsey Kirkland Academy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great. You said it
Yeah.
just right.
Talk to us
Um,
about that year and how it went.
Kelsey Kirkland Academy. It was the first. So what happened was like I went to New York and I originally the plan was to audition for School of American Ballet, which is the school for New York City Ballet. And Patricia McBride, she was helping me with that audition. She was basically setting it up for me and just getting it going. Um, and then I was attending GKA, their summer program, because Gelsey Kirkland Academy wasn't a thing at that point. It had started as a summer program and was going to develop into a school that following year,
Mm.
or season. And so my mom had heard about it, saw it in an ad in Pointe Magazine, and was like, "Oh, this legendary ballerina, Gelsey Kirkland, like she used to dance with New York City Ballet. Like maybe if you go to this before the audition, it'll be good." I went, and I ended up injuring myself there, and I couldn't go to the audition. So then that's what made me go to the school, just because you know I really liked working with Gelsey. I liked she's just legend in the ballet world. Like she's
Mm.
one of the greatest artists I feel like that has come from American ballet in um, you know decades. And so it was just cool to be around that, and I had no other option. So it wasn't the most intentional choice, but it happened. And then the time I was there, the first year was actually um, kind of a challenge for me because she is a very uh, esoteric type artist. Like she was introducing these ideas of visions and storytelling that I hadn't really thought of. Like instead of following um, the more regular approach of a storyline and just understanding characters and etc. through a ballet, she was more about creating a story with everything that you do, like being intentional with every movement that you do. And being 15 and kind of going through my own personal journey of like being this like teenager in New York City away from home, um, it just wasn't clicking. But it was, now I look back at it and I know it actually did click. It's just I was resisting it. There was a lot of um, resistance from what I knew. And so that first year definitely was a year of surrender ultimately, where there was all this resisting, a lot of difficulty, especially with healing the injury and then coming back from the injury and then being like trying to, the feeling of proving yourself and your worth after not dancing for a little bit. Um, yeah. And then eventually coming to a realization that I don't know as much as I think I know, and that I need to just listen to these teachers and just kind of see what happens. That was definitely the what I can remember.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then so the Ballet West audition happens in 2016. Is that
That was so GKA. It was 1 year when I first moved. I think it must have been like 2012 or 2011 to 2012 or something. And then after that, um, so I attended GKA another half year after that first year. And at the time, uh, things started actually going well. There was I had a partner, like a dance partner, who was also one of my best friends, named Adrian, and him and I like got to work together that first season of the second year, and we got to do this ballet called La Bayadere, and we were playing like this lead uh, principal couple, and I've never done anything like that before. Um, and we got to work with Gelsey Kirkland and her husband um, Misha Chernov. And at the time, it just felt like this, dream scenario of like, wow, like this must be what it feels like to actually be like a ballerina, getting this amazing coaching and all of that. it was a great experience. Then afterwards, Adrian and I wanted to go to a summer program, like for this other school, which was Ellison Ballet,
Mm.
to work with Edward Ellison, who's like this, you know, kind of, he's very artistically driven as well, but like his methods are a lot more detail oriented, like very almost like harsh conditions. Like you just know it's going to be cut and dry, and like you sign up knowing that that's what you're about to enter if you're accepted. And we both wanted that for our own like technical development. And Gelsey's husband did not take it very well. And it was a kind of, when I look back now, it was definitely a traumatic experience. Like there was a lot of, you know, yelling, a lot of just like, you know, naming like me and Adrian, who were teenagers at the time, like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys are selfish. Like we've given you so much. Like it was really hard to process.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we decided to talk with Gelsey and her husband of like, okay, we do want to do the summer program. We've decided that. How will that affect us with you guys? And her husband basically like set the tone of just like, oh, well, we can't. Um, we're basically not going to want to work with you as much because you're not showing dedication to us. And you know, and then on the side, Gelsey would talk to us individually, and Gelsey, you know, explained her departure from New York City Ballet and how she wanted to do other work and work with other people with American Ballet Theater. And she was called a traitor at the time by a lot of her colleagues. And she explained her empathy with our situation. So I felt like that was a good sign that, you know, because she was the one that I looked up to more than anything. And so Adrian and I ended up leaving the school
Yeah.
that day. And that's when we entered Ellison. He took us under his wing. He let us come and take classes with him, even though that we were kind of abandoned for a second. Like we just went to his rooftop in Tribeca and just like looked at the sky. I remember that day so clearly. We were like, what are we gonna do? But that's how we got into Ellison. And then both of us graduated from that school. And then Ballet West came after that.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Um, I guess, I mean, do you have any pieces of advice for someone, you know, maybe a younger dancer who's in that time period? Um, you know.
Yeah. Basically just follow your gut, like do what you want to do. That time, I think I was struggling a lot with like thinking, like, you know, just wanting to listen to people over my own instincts. And of course, it's important to listen, but yeah, to stay strong in like your own desires, your own, you know, sense that you're picking up on of where you should go. I think it's important to never feel guilty for following your intuition, and never to let somebody else's voice that might seem more authoritative or, you know, like all knowing, you know, like someone that's trying to impose that on you, never let that overcome like your inner compass.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to us about the Ballet West.
Just the experience there.
Yeah, I mean, so you graduate from Ellison Ballet in 2015, is that it? And then
Yes,
okay, and then 2016 you're
that's when
auditioning.
I, yeah, so the audition process actually happens like while you're training. So while I was training at the school at Ellison Ballet Professional Training Program, we do all of our auditions like while we're training. So it's just like an understood process where you just need to communicate with your teachers and et cetera. And Ballet West, they were performing at the Joyce Theater in New York. And so, you know, I emailed Adam, the director there. I let him know that I would love to audition if they would have me for class. And then I got to take class with them, like the company members that were there. And Adam basically pulled me aside afterwards and explained that they didn't have any contracts for a taller dancer in their second company, um, and none for the main company either. So he offered me a traineeship, which is essentially another year of schooling. And then I told him I would think about it. And then when I graduated from the school from Ellison, um, pretty much that day, I was like, okay, I feel good about going to Salt Lake City and trying this traineeship. And then that's when so once I graduated, I think the summer happened, and that summer I relocated to Salt Lake. And yeah, I did a year of the trainee program, which was a very hard year. I think I was going through all of this. Like there's the career and then there's like the self. And the self I can look back on and say I was definitely depressed. I was going through very depressive thoughts, very fearful thoughts. I didn't know what my path was leading me to. I didn't have any sort of, I don't know, I didn't have any real answers at that point other than like, this is where you're at now. And that's it. I didn't know anyone in Salt Lake City when I moved there, except someone that he had been in New York, like with another student, another company essentially for young dancers. And, but like he wasn't necessarily like a friend at the time. So I definitely felt very alone. And, being away from your family, being on a completely different wavelength in terms of like the energy that you're around. Yeah, like not the same as New York, like not the same as the East Coast, like completely different. Like, just a lot to take in. And the trainee program, just felt like I was just training more. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to ever become a professional or if I'm just going to keep training.
Yeah.
See what happened after that. Yeah, it was a dark time. But then the year ended, and then basically Adam offered me a contract for the second company for the following season, and felt so grateful. And I just it felt like a weight was lifted, and that there was some sort of traction happening in terms of my career finally. So that was cool. And through all of this, I have to mention, like the summer, it's like that's really the only time you have off when you're in this type of setting of pre-professional training. Like you have train for months. Like that's your life. And then you have a break for the summer. Like, and you can either use that summer to do like a program, a training program, or vacation, or both. And so what I would do is I would go back to New York and I would train with Ellison, touch up on details, those more difficult nitty gritty things that he's so good at breaking down. And I would also, go to this music festival called Bonnaroo in Manchester, Tennessee. And I think that had a huge part in like my overall personal development while navigating all of this. Cause it was, a complete, like I had never really been in those environments growing up, but I had friends that spoke very highly about this festival. And I just remember going there and feeling like I had like understood the true meaning of beauty just because everyone was just roaming on their own terms, helping each other out, like creating a sense of community. There's like a very magical energy there that I think would replenish me for the next season. And I would take what I would develop as a person and then bring it in. So when I joined the second company, I was just like super pumped, ready to go, feeling good. And then within 2 months, I guess there was like some spots that opened in the main company. And so 2 months into the second company training, I got a contract, and that kind of started my real company standing with Ballet West.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there any specific questions like
I
further,
guess
or do you want me to just keep
yeah.
going?
No, I mean, so I guess the first thing is, do you have any tips for ballet dancers when it comes to auditioning?
Mm, yes, actually. Um, I think uh, honing in on like your presence, I think, is something that I wish I could have prepared a little bit more before entering the audition. circuit um, as a pre-professional. I think it's so easy to get caught up in comparison and just, feeling like it's this intense environment, because it is an intense environment and there are people that are giving off that energy and it feels very cutthroat. Um, but if you can try and hone in on just like your own sense of presence, being able to keep your a steady breath, being able to stay focused on your own abilities, your own, I guess, identity that you're bringing to the room. Um, then whether you get accepted or rejected, you at least can say that you were present, that you gave it your all, and to hopefully find value in that, as opposed to finding value on if or not you get the position, or if you get cut or not. Like, I think there was a lot of expectation and disappointment with my personal experience because I didn't yet understand the importance of being with myself and my own grounded energy. So that's the best advice I can give, and
Yeah.
that's something that I'm working on for auditions in the future, if there are any.
Yeah. Yeah. Any advice on rejections? I feel like that's a staple of this industry, unfortunately.
Yeah. Rejection. Um, yeah, to not look at it as a bad thing. I think rejection, you know, it is disappointing. It's obviously, it can be heartbreaking depending on how much you love a company that you're auditioning for. Um, but I think it's important to recognize rejection as more of a lesson of some sort, of like what it is that you feel rejected from, I guess. Like, do you feel like um, you're just upset because you were rejected from this company? Do you feel upset because you don't think you gave it your best? Like, there's so many feelings that come with the idea of rejection that I think just aren't necessarily, um, they're not always helpful if you get stuck in the idea of rejection. So when I say to see it as a lesson, um, my best advice would just to be looking at it as like it is what it is. You can't really look too deep into it, and if you look at it as just something that has happened that is, you know, it's not for you, then hopefully you can look at it and be like, okay, um, what do I want to work on now? Like, what did I feel uneasy about? Like, what did I feel that I didn't like have complete control over within myself? Like, uh, what, what, what did I feel? What triggers occurred like in that process or with being rejected? Just being able to observe everything that comes with the rejection.
How do you gain confidence? Because so much of, when you're working with a teacher, I assume it's mostly critical feedback because they're trying to fix things. Obviously, there'll
Mhm.
be some positive feedback, but how did you personally gain confidence in yourself, not only in auditions, but when you were performing?
Mm. Well, to be completely frank, I struggled with confidence, like, especially when I was training. Like, I, um, I would say that I was super, super self deprecating, like, as a means of motivation. Like, I think there was a lot of energy that was provided from being self critical all the time, at least with my own motivation. And, I think with auditions, it didn't help. Like that was what I mean when I say it's not always helpful to just be critiquing and analyzing. But the confidence, I think, with stage, um, it came with performing more than anything. Um, just kind of like the feeling that I remember having, that I actually did, I could feel confident to, like, play a character fully or to dive into something fully. It Mr. Ellison, like, he choreographed a ballet, Carmen, and that's like what I graduated with, performing that piece. And it's this very confident character. It's Carmen. She is, unwaveringly confident and strong and powerful and feisty and all these things that I didn't necessarily feel that I embodied. Um, but on stage, it's like you have this feeling of like you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to really protect at that point. Like it's like you have to leave it all there and maybe do it does something good to the audience, or you like reserve yourself and then regret it later.
Yeah.
So I feel like being on the stage definitely helped with the idea of building confidence, just seeing as like there's really nothing to hide, there's nothing to be um, withholding. um, it's just about like putting it out there and then hoping that um, it affects somebody in some way, and then you can leave after that performance feeling like, oh wow, like there was not really much thought that went into that, it was just presenting. And that is something that I think I see as confidence now, really just not thinking about something too much, just giving what you have, knowing that it has some sort of good intention behind it.
You mentioned when you moved out to Utah, maybe that first year that you were, dealing with depression.
Mhm.
Um, every year, ballet dancers are moving and, training and going to different cities. And obviously that's not a part that, you or they can control in terms of having friends or the location of where they go. But as you look back now as a more mature person, is there any piece of advice you would give you know, yourself in that time period?
Mm. I mean, I wish I could have told myself to see a therapist. I think that's something that there's a lot of resistance of the idea of actually asking for help when you are in a place of darkness with yourself. I think it's quite popular for um, artists and just people alike, but especially artists, to think that suffering is necessary for the art, for your own development. Like you think that you find greatness in your suffering, which is definitely proven to be true for a lot of artists. But for for me personally, it's like, that I could definitely see truth in that, but also I would have recommended at least getting a few therapy appointments here and there just to start introducing the idea of self-love. Because I know I feel very lucky that while I was depressed, like I didn't go to a place of self-harm. But for young people that might be, just kind of becoming content with the idea of suffering or being in a depressed state, it definitely can go a very, very dark path that I feel lucky to have not gone. Um, so yeah, that's why I would recommend a therapist or just
Yeah.
the idea of therapy being positive and not, you know, something that is showing weakness or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. Uh, I'm interested, especially at a professional level. Is it, you're training so hard. Is it possible to keep the joy of ballet while you're, you know, training so hard for a performance?
I think it's possible. I
Okay.
mean, I think it depends on a lot of factors. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think in an environment that is, okay, how do I word this delicately? Um, so, say that you're in an environment where, there's going to be hard work either way. That's just, that's what you're signing up for. You know that there's going to be physical pain. There's going to be mental strain. You know that you're going to be exhausted. That's okay. A lot of dancers are cool with that. If you're in an environment where you feel like the work is coming from a place of intention, like I think there, I've, with my training especially, it's like there was a lot of intention. There was a lot of desire to improve the art form, to like make the art form survive in a world where it is, there's a lot of change and not a lot of people love ballet as much as they did back in like the 70s, or just back in history. But if you're in an environment where I feel like you are around people that share this common love for this like incredibly difficult art form, and want to support each other for the sake of the art form, for the sake of the dance, as opposed to um, the dancer, as opposed to like an egoic idea of what ballet should be, this like shining like prima ballerina like identity that a lot of dancers want to embody. um, if the environment is about the intention, if it's about the dance, I think it's totally possible to still love ballet in the work leading up to performance. If it's coming from a place of ego, or for caring what people think, trying to do things, cutting corners just so that you can say that it's done, say that you put the work in, quote unquote, but then not really having much intention behind that other than just wanting to come off as uh, pleasing, like, avoiding those difficult conversations of having to be like constructually like critical of people's artistic choices or technique. Like there's a lot of difficulty that goes into that when it comes to the ego. So if people are kind of avoiding those things for the sake of protecting the ego of dancers or whoever's in the room, then I think the enjoyment's lost because it's no longer about the dance at that point. It's about the dancers. And, that's when the dancers start to lose touch with their love of dance, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Injuries are part of this industry a lot. I'm curious, do you have any advice for anyone on staying mentally well while recovering from an injury?
Mm, yeah. This is a very, this might be an unconventional answer, but something that I think I got from my training experience at Ellison. I had an 8-month injury uh, where I just had to not be physically active at all, pretty much, um, while I was training. And one of the things that Mr. Ellison and my other teacher, Miss Forrest, was supportive of was the idea of going to this woman. Her name was Kezabon, or her name is Kezabon, and she's a heart healer. And she was the mother of, or she is the mother of one of the dancers, or one of my peers at the school. And so I went to her, not really knowing what to expect. I had never done anything like that. And she basically just guided me through like a 45-minute meditation. And uh, you know, introduced me to the ideas of going within, as a means of healing the physical body. And I had just never really, I don't know what I thought at the time. Like I just was open to it, because my mentors were saying that it was something I should do. But now I can see that with injury, I think it's so important to find, I mean, meditation will help you, but like to be able to go within yourself, to be able to ask yourself if you are limiting yourself in any way, if you are holding on to fear of, a healed body, like if you're keeping yourself subconsciously in a place of injury and retreat. Um, I think that was so important to be exposed to at that, developmental age, because now I see with any healing, physical or mental, um, it's so important to kind of tap into those um, deeper questions that will eventually, come full circle and be answered, hopefully.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, and then it does help you let go of like the trauma of facing an injury, for sure.
How is your approach, you know, different as you go from being a part of the company to becoming a demi-soloist to becoming a soloist? What's the difference? Is there a difference in preparation or mentality?
Mm, hmm. I think there certainly is, depending on the person. I think for me, it the idea of a title or the idea of being promoted to a position higher up in the company, it definitely was important to me. Just because when you're training and when you're trying to be a dancer, um, you know that the people that get to play like the real characters in the story, not and the corps de ballet is incredibly important. Like it is the the base of everything. Like it's so um, necessary for ballet and powerful. But as you get promoted, to a demi, to a soloist, like you're basically being told that you are going to be given more opportunity for these other roles that are a little bit more showcased than the corps de ballet. So that already was a lot of a lot of pressure, and at the time, just because I did struggle with self confidence, and it influenced me a lot in that way. But then in reality, it didn't change a lot other than adding work to what was already a very difficult job. Um, with a demi soloist position, that was probably the hardest experience I had in a professional setting, because you're not only still performing corps de ballet roles, and some demi soloist to soloist roles, but you're learning everything. Like you have to understudy so many things. Like I think for most ballets, um, I it was like not uncommon for me to be studying like 4 to 5 things at once, and that's really hard to do. And it felt very isolating, just because only so many people in the company understand that. And it was really hard to kind of feel physically and mentally drained, and then also still have expectation of performing the more soloist roles, like with the amount of conviction and certainty as these soloist principal dancers who most of their time was spent on those specific roles and not having to learn like 4 other things that were group things. Um, so it did make a difference. It was kind of just like adding more responsibility to um, what you already had to do as a dancer,
Yeah.
which came with goods and bads.
Yeah. Talk to us about being the summer issue cover for Pointe Magazine. How was What was that like?
That was, it felt like it didn't feel real at first. Like I remember when they told me about it, um, I almost didn't. I thought it was a joke or something. I thought it was like, oh, like it must be just like some like a small article or like a little tidbit or something. I didn't know it was going to actually be, the cover with like a spread, just because I had never experienced something like that before. And I grew up in Acton, reading these Pointe magazines, and I would rip the covers off and tape them on my wall, and they're still there.
Wow.
Um, and I loved reading that magazine. So it was a dream come true for sure. Um, the experience was super humbling. It made me realize that like anybody, if I could do something like that, then like anybody could really do something like that. I remember I had a conversation with my brother, Henry, when I was a kid. And I remember just being like, oh, like one day I'm going to be on the cover of this magazine. And then I was like, maybe by the time I'm like 21, like I must have been like 14 or something, 13 when I said this. And I remember him being like, nah, like that, no way. And I just remember like, no, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then when it happened, I wasn't 21, but like when it happened, I just was like, ooh, life is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I'm curious, one of the things nowadays that's talked about is representation, and you know is it Misty Copeland, right? Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's done, quite a bit in this industry, um being the first, for several different things. But what are your thoughts on that? in terms of the ballet industry in general?
I think this is a very exciting time in history for ballet. Um, in terms of representation in the industry for um, Black, Brown, Asian dancers. I think there's always been uh, a sense of being behind in the ballet realm. I think that there's so many things that are just based on Eurocentric patterns of thinking and a lot of misogyny in the sense where it's like there's a lot of males dominating the higher up positions in the dance world. But I think with uh, our current political environment that we're in, I think that the dance world is, there's a lot of speaking up going on from the dancer's perspective. I think it's been a while where the dancers have kind of been in like a forced silence almost, where um, you can speak out on things, but at the same time, like you understand that there's this feeling of being disposable at any moment if you upset the wrong person, or if you stir the pot a little too much. Like there's always that fear that has just been instilled in the dancer's voice. But now I think with um, especially the George Floyd murder, I feel like since then, I think dancers have just been like outwardly like demanding of justice within the dance world, including like having representation, not just tokenizing dancers of color for the look of inclusion, but like understanding the importance of having dancers of color in administrative roles, in director roles, being able to be in the artistic staff, like having some sort of influence on the front of the room, and not just like hiring dancers that um, include people other than white folks. So that's really cool. And I think in time there will be choreography that's more representative of all people. I think there's going to be music that's going to be incorporated into ballets. I think there's going to be a lot of um, just kind of putting away a lot of old, outdated, racist, uh, you know, language or just choreography that exists out there. I think we're on the right path, and there's a lot of good directors that are really advocating for what's right, and a lot of white allies that are speaking out as well. And I'm really excited to see how things go.
Yeah. Um, taking care of your body. Any pieces of advice there?
Mm. Yes, definitely. The body, I think, at this point in my life, I'm realizing it's so wise. Like, there's a lot of wisdom in our body that I think um, once we understand that, then we feel more inclined to protect it, to take care of it, and to listen to it. I think it's so common um, for dancers to kind of, they go all in, like obviously, like they pursued such an intense career, but when it comes to health, when it comes to how we treat our body, there's a lot of harshness. There's a lot of like rough. We think that being rough on it will kind of acclimate it to being in a rough environment. It's like we have that strange notion thinking it's going to help us, but I think ultimately just being able to sit with the body, hydrating is number one for the brain more than anything. And then once you have that, then you can just kind of feel like, okay, what's hurting, um, what's sore, what's needing some love, and just like I think approaching the body in a place of love and gentleness and wanting to nurture it. I think that is something that is actually more helpful, like when being put in a difficult environment, because then you can actually heal yourself as opposed to just giving more difficulty to your body and having expectations of it, having just bogging yourself down constantly instead of just being gentle. Um, Yoga is great
Yeah.
in terms of strength building. Uh, it's really good for getting that sense of groundedness and not just being passive. And yeah, I would just say hydrating and nutrition. Just whenever you can, just eat real food, like real
Yes.
vegetables, real, not protein bars, not sugar free, fat free, all that gunk.
Yeah.
Just something that came from the earth.
Yeah. How has COVID been for you and the industry?
It's transformative for sure. Um, there's a lot of great ideas that are coming out of the dance industry with the pandemic. I think the dancers have provided so much creativity, like that has shocked, I think, anybody that's on the marketing team, I feel like, or that realm of dance, where there's all these other factors and people that come into play that might not be dancers themselves. I think they have been like super supportive of dancers bringing ideas to the table, and that's cool because prior to the pandemic, dancers didn't necessarily have any obligations other than to dance. So with the pandemic, there was a lot more interviews happening, like being able to shape your voice, which I struggled with, I know, and I still do. But that was like a big push, bum, to just kind of get people speaking, being able to make videos, being able to edit videos, being able to collaborate with people. Um, just find ways to make ballet and dance accessible. Um, you know, just really good stuff that I think um, I know there's a lot of negatives, and I as much as I would like to bring up those, I think really the positives have been so overwhelming. And now that people are starting to get back on stage, I think there's a lot of optimism that is, being felt. And I think that's just wonderful, like knowing that the people that still are, just in the industry, they're maybe rediscovering their love for the art form, and that's wonderful. But I personally am just excited for the creative um, reroutes, I guess, that have come
Yeah.
from this.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a result of the pandemic.
Yeah. You recently decided not to renew your contract at Ballet West. Do you want to talk about, that decision and what you hope as you progress in this new direction?
Um, Sorry, can you repeat the last part of that
No, no,
question?
no, I just you you decided not to renew your
Mhm.
contract. I'm just curious, what went into that decision, and what other areas are you maybe looking to explore, or and things of that nature.
Yeah. Um, yeah, thank you for asking that question because I think that's something that um, it feels very unknown still. Like, I think the initial desire to not return my contract the next season, it came from just being in a place of presence where instead of planning ahead, I've been more trying to just take what comes with me every day. Um, and, I'm currently in Chicago, and I feel like what I've been experiencing here um, has been like really uh, there's been like a paradigm shift almost with just how I want to navigate my time and my actions. And I think the idea of going back to Salt Lake and then returning to this lifestyle that I had been, so familiar with for 5 years, like it definitely felt like while I was there before the pandemic hit, it definitely started to reach a feeling of complacency where I didn't feel myself growing in ways that I necessarily wanted to, but I felt like I was just trying to keep up with the work and produce what I can, even though I felt so exhausted. Um, And so my director with Ballet West, Adam, I like got to be honest with him about all these things, and he was so supportive, and he listened to my perspective, and he showed like just so much patience and kindness through it. And so when I decided to not return my contract, I felt like I didn't have to be afraid to admit that I felt it was just better for me to be present and to see what could happen here in Chicago or wherever, um, because he gave me that support. And so yeah, it was a very positive change. It was a very positive decision. And moving forward, like I really just hope to get into collaborative projects. I would love to just get to know different artists that share similar values and um, deeper meanings to life as me. I would like to just kind of pave a path that I maybe haven't seen before. Um, a lot of my favorite musicians, like they had to figure things out in their current time, and they maybe not they they perhaps weren't even realized for their work until after their death. So I hope to try and just follow my own gut, see what comes, put in as much work as I would, like with the professional ballet, like contractual realm, and just take that energy and put it into like my daily choices, and just hope that this different approach will generate like the community and collaborations that I'm looking for, without really having any expectations or foresight in any of it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome that you're I think so many people don't make the decision you did because they're afraid of the unknown, but knowing yourself and having the self-awareness to trust your gut and see the possibilities that may come through the decision. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's sweet.
yeah. Um, yeah, Emily, we talked about a good amount of things. Was there something you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
Mm, well, let me think. I think, sorry if you hear noise, by the way. I have a bunch of
No,
roommates.
that's fine.
Um, Lovely people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just I would like to talk about the idea of, uh, how do I, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to say it how it is. I want to talk about love. I think
Okay.
it's important that that has been, that is a very important idea that I think was introduced into my life. Obviously it's always in our lives, but with the pandemic, I think the idea of self-love, uh, it was just like absolutely forefront of my mind. Just like, how do I not freak out right now? How do I not have just anxiety up the roof? Like, how do I not just feel stressed? Like all these things that were so natural for me to just go into, like that way of being. And so love, um, we live in a world that uh, it's currently a capitalist patriarchy.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of like power being a big force in our life, it brings a lot of fear to people. It brings a lot of comparison. It brings a lot of high expectation of like, how do I avoid being someone that has no power? Like that is, I think, a fear of many people, especially coming from immigrant parents. It's like we're worried for your kids in surviving the country pretty much and being able to have a quote unquote good life. Um, so now my attention has shifted to the idea of love, where, um, if everybody had this sense of awareness within themselves, this presence of love, self love, and could tap into it as a place of healing and peace and just being able to be present, then it's the energy emits itself. Like you bring in other people, and it starts creating a collective awareness of like being loving to yourself and to others, and then knowing that that is like the main thing to protect with your relationships and your career and like the choices that you make. um, so love, I think, is so important to just bring up as a means of, it's not necessarily something that comes from elsewhere, but from within first. Because if there was that collective care and respect of love within the self and others, then we wouldn't have a need for power. We wouldn't have a need for wanting to one up somebody or be above or below somebody. We wouldn't have to be so fearful and selfish, and that would exterminate those desires in people. Um, so I think that's something that bringing it up more often is just something that needs to happen, like in our generation, especially. Like we all have a choice at this point of where we want to go, and yeah, I think it's just worth mentioning.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Um, yeah. Cool. Well, Emily, I just want to thank you for being on and sharing your experience to becoming a professional ballet dancer. That it was, it was cool to. I respect everybody in your profession to make a move at like 15 to to be taking something so seriously. I can't imagine my 15-year-old self committing to something so seriously.
Well, you
Um,
got here.
yeah,
You're doing these interviews, and I think that is awesome that
yeah.
you, whatever you chose has led you to this way of being.
But that was at like 25, so it was.
That's okay.
It's incredible maturity for everybody in your industry that at a young age commits to their craft. So yeah, just want to thank you and acknowledge you on. It's just cool to see someone move from a trainee to a soloist. That's good for everyone to see that that type of progression is possible. Um, and I just want to wish you the best going forward with all the possibilities and whatever goes on this year. If there's anybody that wants to reach out to you or follow your journey, do you want to let them know how they can do that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Um, my let me look up my handle. It's so hard to understand. Uh, so em__NEALE. It looks like M Neale. That's my dance account.
Nice.
And then I also have like a personal account. If anybody else wants to follow, it's in the caption of my main account anyway. Yeah, you can always reach out to me on there. Um, I'm usually I'll delete the app every once in a while, but I'll usually go back just to see if there's any messages.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't really, I'm not on Facebook these days, so I'd
Yeah.
say that's the best way.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. Like I when I got your message, I was really just so pleased. I was like, wow, like someone from AV, someone reaching out, like doing something in the world. I'm honored. And like I really loved your questions. I loved this whole process. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.